Imagine you're standing in a packed room where everyone is watching your every move, not because they admire you, but because they're waiting for you to trip up. In Mark, Matthew, and Luke, we find Jesus in exactly that position. A man with a withered hand is standing right in front of him, and the religious elite are practically holding their breath. Why? Because it's the Sabbath. To them, healing this man isn't an act of mercy, it's a crime. Today, we're looking at one of the most tense showdowns in the Gospels. We'll see how a doctor's eye for detail, a sheep in a pit, and a forbidden alliance between enemies reveal the true heart of Jesus, and why this one miracle signed his death warrant. There is one specific detail in Mark's version that explains why this miracle actually led directly to the cross. Stick around until the end because most people miss the unholy alliance that formed the second Jesus said, "Stretch out your hand." So who is this man with the withered hand in the synagogue? We don't really know his identity. Mark tells us simply that there was a man there who had a withered hand. Matthew likewise notes, "And behold, there was a man there who had a withered hand." However, Luke, who was a physician and a keen observer, provides additional small, seemingly tiny, but very significant detail telling us that there was a man there whose right hand was withered. You might ask yourself, why does Luke care that it was a right hand and not left? In this culture, the right hand was designated for work and social honor. A withered right hand meant the man couldn't work and was socially a half a person or perhaps an outcast. The tension builds up in the synagogue. Mark tells us that they watched him closely to see if he would cure him on the Sabbath so that they might accuse him. Luke adds the detail that it was the scribes and the Pharisees that watched him closely to see if he would cure on the Sabbath so that they might discover a reason to accuse him. Matthew, however, gives us more than a simple tension as they questioned him. Is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath? So that they might accuse him. What Jesus said to the next made them furious as he questioned their integrity. Matthew writes, "He said to them, which one of you who has a sheep that falls into a pit on the Sabbath will not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable a person is than a sheep? So it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath." We must remember that back then, a sheep was a major investment. Additionally, medical practice was forbidden on the Sabbath unless it was a life-or-death emergency. But how do you prosecute someone for just saying, "Stretch out your hand"? You can't. That's why they were so enraged. He beat them at their own legal game. Jesus went after their wallets and they hated him for it. As Mark points out, Jesus asked them a question and they stayed silent. Their silence doesn't say that they didn't have an opinion. It said that they simply cared more about a sheep than about the man with the withered hand. This was also one of very few times that Jesus was described as angry, perhaps the only time stated explicitly. Mark characterized Jesus as looking around at them with anger and grieved at their hardness of heart. The next thing that happened and is described identically by all three evangelists is the healing itself, as Jesus said, "Stretch out your hand," and the hand was healed. Note that Jesus didn't technically work. He didn't touch the man or apply medicine. He just spoke. Technically, he didn't even break the Pharisaical rules of work, which makes their reaction even crazier and most irrational. So what is the unholy alliance we mentioned at the beginning? The Pharisees, who were the religious nationalists, and Herodians, who were considered Roman political puppets, hated each other. Mark tells us that the Pharisees went out and immediately took counsel with the Herodians against him to put him to death. So this is the event in the New Testament that likely coined the phrase, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." This miracle was so threatening that it forced these two enemies to team up to plot an assassination, or as we know it as crucifixion. It's fascinating, isn't it? At the end of the story, the man's hand is restored, but the critics' hearts are harder than ever. Mark shows us Jesus' righteous anger. Matthew shows us the sheer logic of choosing a person over a property like a sheep. Luke reminds us that this was the man's right hand, his strength and his future. The Pharisees walked out of that synagogue with a plan to kill, while the man walked out with a new life. It forces us to ask, are we more committed to the rules of our traditions or the restoration of the people standing right in front of us? If you found these gospel comparisons helpful, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. Which details stood out to you most, the sheep in the pit or the unholy alliance between the Pharisees and Herodians? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next study.